Hey, let's talk really close this time, okay? So our faces almost touch when we whisper. A change in genre. Something unnecessary. I don't know. We could cry.
No. But tell me this. Do people generally care about what others think of them for an evolutionary advantage? We subject ourselves to others' opinions when, in the heat of any moment, we shouldn't care. Social contracts could be so different.
No, this isn't 1969.
It's simple. It's a movement where everyone can have nice shit. There are luxuries folded in and amongst everything.
Yeah.
Vast amounts of inaccessible wealth at great distances, like treasures on a map. So I posit that we gather the excess Scrooge McDuck quantities and make nice shit for everybody.
Okay.
But we have to agree on one key tenet.
What's that?
To stop monopolies from shipping their cheap shit all over the world. This model, it just relocates low-wage jobs to the next poorest country until you hit a wall.
Okay.
Capitalism is a race to the bottom, to the lowest bidder.
Maybe you're right.
Yay! You can buy cheaply made things. Then what do? Sit on our doorsteps waiting for this crisis to reach our doors?
You've got a point.
Das Kapital was written 150 years ago. I mean, really.
I know. I mean, I'm trying, aren't I? Can't I get a little credit? I'm literally down to my last dollar. Just kidding. Bye.
Wow. Hello, people of Earth. It is I, the last of my kind. But seriously, you do need to go out and buy guns right now. Yes, I know you have liberal values. So now we. So meet me behind the Metropolitan Museum tomorrow at 5 p.m. when I'm going to tell you some more stuff. Bye!
Oh, hello, Priyamvada Gopal. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, there's been a 30% rise in hate groups in the U.S. Are you seeing anything like this in England?
Absolutely. We have a rise in xenophobia, anti-migrant sentiment, racism, resembling, British nationalism, extreme nationalism, combined with white supremacism. So I would say that race is a kind of a flexible idea which shifts in relation to different historical imperatives. So it takes particular forms on slave plantations. It takes different forms in relation to India and China, where you don't have slavery, but you do have bitter wars over land, trading rights, and resources. So, figuring the Chinese, for instance, as cunning and untrustworthy, absolutely tied up to the politics of trying to force open China, trying to get access to resources and trade in China, tied up to the Opium Wars. And you see variants of that today, where the so-called white working class is pitted against migrants and black people and ethnic minorities.
Here, let me look up real quick what natural rights are. Here's the wiki. Natural rights and legal rights are not dependent on laws of any particular government and are universal and inalienable. Natural law first appeared in ancient Greek philosophy, was referred to by Cicero, subsequently alluded to in the Bible, then developed in the Middle Ages by philosophers such as Thomas Aquinas, then during the Age of Enlightenment was used to challenge the divine right of kings, becoming an alternative justification for the establishment of a social contract in the form of classical republicanism. Conversely, the concept of natural rights is used to challenge the legitimacy of establishments. You know, this is so tragic because as I read this, I'm reminded of my cultural duty to consume without accumulating wealth.
The pursuit of liberty is all-consuming.
You know, the word liberty is used by many on the political spectrum, particularly on the right. It certainly is tied up to the ownership of property. It's also tied up to capitalism in the sense of what are we as citizens free to do? Well, we're free to consume.
Good afternoon, Carpinteros. I can hear your pitter-patter in the carpet. Pick up the phone. Let's talk. Hello, caller.
DJ Thanatos?
Yes, go ahead.
Long-time listener, second-time caller. I'll take my answer off the air.
Wait, I know you. Not again. Don't hang up. You haven't asked me anything.
Oh, right. Sorry. Well, I've been furloughed, and from an office with horrible decor, by the way, where everyone aesthetically and unironically shows up like they're going to solve the world's problems through UI, UX designed experiences and apps for 7 to 10-year-olds to help them eat healthier or something. But now I miss seeing a sea of Patagonia hats. You know, the one with the mountains on it?
Yes, I'm familiar.
What has happened to me?
Breathe, caller. Take a deep breath and inhale the fibrous off gases from the...
No, DJ Thanatos, that's just it. There's literally no carpet in my apartment.
I think I know what to do in this case. Just let me find the... here it is. 1977, Better Homes and Garden, April edition. Close your eyes. No, wait again. That's not it. I'm gonna put you... here we go. Now let me see. You lie down here.
Right here?
Yes. And it looks like you can climb up these stairs, which seems rather interesting. Maybe your father is an architect. Nah. Next. Oh yes, here, this one. Lie down in a pink bathroom in suburban Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, like this?
Yeah. Can you smell Mama's cooking?
Yes.
That's right. Now stay with me. She told you to wash up, didn't she?
Yes.
Go get in the tub.
Like this?
Yes. But now remember, there's no rush because you've got the Millennium Falcon parked under those bubbles. Are you feeling this, Tom?
Yes, I am.
Good. Now dry off and come downstairs. You've got company waiting in the living room.
Oh, okay. But is it my friends and their parents wanting to throw me a surprise party? Or is it my boss from work who's stressed out and wants to Zoom so I can fix the thing he's fucked up again?
No, that's not it. The first one.
Yeah?
Your friends and their parents are all waiting downstairs to surprise you.
Okay then. I'm coming down.
Nice. But wait, do you really need that in your life right now? You're full of creative ideas. You should be alone.
You're right.
So instead, you go to your room and lie down in your favorite spot, listening to Bauhaus and eating Hermann, the German Bavarian hard candies, one at a time. We get it.
You're right. Fuck all that. This is where I'm the happiest. Everyone can go fuck themselves, and Trump is a misogynistic piece of...
That's all the time we have. I want to thank our sponsor, Stainmaster from Dalton, Georgia. Even the toughest stains don't stand a chance against those synthetic corn hybrid fibers.
now NASA is recording the sounds of Venus and its upper atmosphere? Oh look, it's Emily Apter. Maybe she can shed some light on a peace of mind. So what do you think about a philosophy of politics since Marx? Or an a priori link between the philosophical and the political?
The retreat of the political, this was an idea that Jean-Luc Nancy and Philippe Lacoue-Labarthe and others, including Jacques Rancière, Jacques Derrida, in the early 80s, they had a center for philosophical research on politics, and they were in search of a philosophical politics that was in some way resistant to public law, to political science, and neoliberal techniques, really, of every stripe. And Anand Badiou, who wasn't directly associated with the group, but he had his own view of philosophical politics that was aligned with what he calls a truth procedure that ensures that the subject, counted as one, comes into existence in the gap between ordinary politics and the state.
When you came for me.
Oh look, it's Remy Bluebells.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, raccoons. Don't fuck this up. You always make me look bad. Don't fuck it up.
Politics is forgetting what you want out of some sorry sucker and then making it look legal in front of all of your fake friends, the ones who actually happen to be your very next victim. Then one says it looks fine, the others agree it doesn't look good for you. Doesn't look too good for me. Ooh, these brave eyes preying on lives, stacking up bodies for a little extra money. I hope these days never end. Gonna trap them in time. Behind the wheel, drag us into lives. Let these days remain the same for all time.
I recognize my position. I don't do it better. I don't do it different. I just walk and have
Oh shit. I just realized what I'm really gonna hate next year.
What?
Hindsight 2020.
What do you mean?
The saying.
Hindsight 2020, the saying?
Yes. I'm gonna hate hearing it in so many various combinations.
You're right. We are gonna hear it over and over. And the only thing worse would be building a better mousetrap.
Well, you do always have to build a better mousetrap.
You do. And by the way, how far is too far anymore?
Everything has gone too far. It's hindsight 2020.
Wait, is it the 90s? Ugh, good grief. Now what am I, Charlie Brown? Am I annoying to myself, even? Heavens to Murgatroyd. What? Now I'm Snagglepuss because we're breaking the fourth wall? Don't spiral. Was that a threat? Are these upward inflections as questions concluding my sentences in reference to the TV show Friends, which I'll publicly deny, but if it's on in a hotel room or an old person's TV during a holiday, I will let it play and pretend I'm only partly interested while finding secret comfort in nostalgia. Could I be any worse? I'm scared, Chuck. What if I grow up and no one ever loves me, Chuck? Will someone love me someday, Chuck? Oh God, I can't stop.
Let's pick up from our earlier conversation in the green room. We were talking about enmity. I wonder if Americans in general are as bewitched and bewildered as I, as unbeknownst friend enemies with the entire world.
When Schmidt talks about enemies, he's talking about political enemies. So political enemies are those whom you are willing to fight and risk your own life to protect your way of life, or even to repel or even eliminate another way of life. So this is very different from despising someone, right? This is someone with whom you're willing to engage in a life or death confrontation. So this distinction is organized around a logic of enmity, of friends versus enemies.
Willing to engage in a life or death confrontation. So these, what you've termed, violence entrepreneurs.
Now, a violence entrepreneur is someone who determines their own form of enmity or friend-enemy distinction. They are their own sovereign. They kill and are willing to risk their own lives for reasons that they determine. Now, if we were to consider these people just criminals who were committing murder, for instance, then we wouldn't need a new category to understand them, right? We wouldn't need to investigate the phenomenon any further, but that's not what we do, right? These people go off to combat zones, they kill, they come back, and then they're given interviews on morning talk shows. But the structural conditions by which they can, in some sense, vacation at war suggests that violence entrepreneurs participate in a new kind of global political economy of crowdfunding, of global travel, and of these surplus military components and equipment that allow these feelings of solidarity to become lethal.
Oh my God. Because we are literally the only, quote, free people with access to military-style weapons, armor, and lethal toys, domestically and abroad. Let's break down the friend-enemy distinction in Carl Schmitt.
In my rereading of Schmitt, violence entrepreneurs engage what Foucault calls technologies of the self, where they are crafting their own forms of enmity and warfare, and also their own relationships between violence and subject making.
OMG. Excuse me. Longtime fan, and I'll take my answer off the air. But I was just talking with Michael Hart about this very thing. How Americans are importing themselves back onto themselves by corporations sending design specs over the Pacific. Whoa, that's enough. I'll ask the questions here. That's my job. Can't you spot the adult baby in the room wearing a Punisher pin on his lapel? So, these crowd-funded, rogue Americans who take it upon themselves to commit overseas vacation murder. This seems uniquely American, does it not?
So I think for sure this behavior does carry a distinctly American style to it. Although I think, like many other American styles, it's no longer restricted just to the US. So this kind of Rambo attitude or aesthetic is often present and has certainly kind of found its way into Canada and parts of Europe.
You know, Foucault offers a critique of sovereignty. Insofar as it is inefficient, the sovereign power cannot be everywhere, while biopower can. Biopower marks the recognition of the individual subject's right to make decisions about everyday things. Health, sexuality, lifestyle?
I think belief is important. I also think belief often gets restricted to the realm of ideas and intentions. So we should remind ourselves of the point that you had raised about Foucault, which is that these are examples of how desire and practice can congeal into new subject formations in ways that often exceed or even outright contradict the explicit stated beliefs of individuals.
This is so fun, as I sit here listening to you, I still can't believe there are actual Americans going full vigilante. I can't believe it.
More importantly, what's interesting is how what they're doing is permissible. That the government knows that they're going over. They may interview them before they get on the plane, and then they send them off. And so the question is when is it permissible and when isn't it? So it's kind of difficult to think about a violence entrepreneur through a sort of diagnostic where you kind of apply it to individuals. It's kind of more of a activity almost.
Right. And how to enter a war zone to begin with. That's a task in itself.
Yeah, I mean, you can fly to Iraq. You could fly to Iraq. I think at the time that these people were going into northern Syria and northern Iraq, they were crossing over from Turkey. But but what they were doing. Yeah, one of the people that was interviewed, I'd read an interview with him. He said that he was the FBI came to the airport and interviewed him before he got on the plane. Just asked him, "What are you gonna do?" And said, "I'm going to go fight ISIS," and they were have a good time. So it's totally out in the open. I mean, the government's aware of what they're doing, but states treat them very differently.
Speechless. Tune in tomorrow when I'll be chatting with Keanu Reeves. Good night, everybody. And remember, frog mamas, don't let your tadpoles and froglets grow up to be Care Bears.
You're hilarious, Steven Osuna. Now, what exactly is the neoliberal turn?
The moment in which capitalists, their corporations, and their capitalist economy were freed from state regulation in the 1970s is what is often called the neoliberal turn. In the global south, it was first enforced in Chile in 1973 after the coup that killed Salvador Allende. Then in Britain under Margaret Thatcher, and in the US with Ronald Reagan, which is often called Reaganomics. The neoliberal turn slashed public spending in housing, education, healthcare, public infrastructure, the social wage, and invested instead in the repressive arm of the capitalist state through policing and prisons. In this current moment of a global pandemic, we see the savage results of neoliberalism, in which capitalist governments are seeking market solutions to solve our immediate problems. Instead of a planned economy that would make sure our needs are met, we have capitalists deciding what needs will be met. This allows for their wealth to accumulate and wealth to be hoarded. Ideologically, the neoliberal turn has also influenced how we think about the social world. When thinking of intellectuals in the university, we see how education has been shaped by capitalist values. The bourgeois conception of the academy is self-serving, to create a name for yourself as an intellectual rather than serve the people through your writing and intellectual labor. The role of intellectuals historically has been to legitimate the social order, and in this moment, neoliberal racial capitalism is the social order. Imperialist plunder is rationalized as a necessary evil for a bourgeois democracy. Intellectuals in the university rationalize these social relations as natural and given, and they get rewarded for it.
I've read a lot of people in Venice are complaining about homelessness right now.
Where I live in El Sereno, you drive through Huntington Drive and there's huge encampments that were never there before, right? And some people will say, oh, it's just a whole bunch of addicts and people with mental health issues. It could be that, but it's also families. It's also people that are able-bodied to work and to live, but they just can't pay their housing.
I've been reading Walter Rodney, and what can you tell me about class suicide?
Walter Rodney and other radicals who were often from the middle strata or middle class urged us to think through class suicide, which they described as going against your class interests and uplifting and fighting for the interests of the working class and the oppressed. They urged us to think about how our work can have a preferential option for the poor. The capitalist system is seductive. It rewards intellectuals and artists when they uphold the status quo. We have to challenge this. And this can only be done, Rodney argued, by grounding ourselves with the struggles of the oppressed. I tell other plants who are predominantly Gen Zs that they have been socialized under a system that has conditioned and promoted a culture of hyper-individualism and the cruel ideology of self-help in capitalist terms. Your personal problems are just that, personal. They're not related to political or economic conditions shaping your existence. Instead, it's your own fault if you're failing at life or down and out. This ideology or cultural formation has produced a heightened anti-intellectualism, an attack on critical thinking, analyzing the root of the problem, what we call radical thinking. The famous saying, that's the way it is, or it is what it is, rather than asking why questions and thinking historically and politically has become common sense, and we must challenge that.
And now a word from our sponsor.
I just want to live.
Have you watched The Social Dilemma yet?
No, why?
You haven't seen it? It's kind of amazing and talks about the evils of tech and how we're social media prisoners liking things we don't actually like.
What? Oh yeah, I've seen it. This is the abyss, the rabbit hole, the darkness. It's all turtles and yoga influencers, all the way down. Are we talking about positive intermittent reinforcement? Slot machines?
Oh, hold on, I was just tagged.
I think it's right to say that any form of bringing citizens into the security apparatus, however informally or however loosely, is dangerous. And I think that we've seen across the board a rise in vigilante violence, whether that takes the form of people, as in Britain, for instance, reporting people who they suspect to be illegal migrants, or reporting people who they suspect of terrorism.
Oh, hello, McKenzie Wark. I enjoyed reading your last book, Capital is Dead. Seems very Nietzschean.
God is dead. Capital is dead. What does it mean to occupy those spaces? And I have to cop to being, among other things, like a kind of extinct species, which is Nietzschean Marxists. I mean, we really were a thing for a minute. You know, it's like not a combination that's very common at all.
I'm reading Marx's Grundrisse by Simon Choate, and I can't help but think that the Earth is a unified factory floor living room, with microplastics floating in the atmosphere, depositing on glaciers, and with no escape for anyone from this factory. No more untouched, pristine nature.
But the other narrative that...
And to top it off, we're all placed alienated in a global workforce, whether we choose to be or not. And the Earth's factory conditions decrease each year, probably at the rate consumption is increasing. We're veal. Irreversible veal.
But the other narrative that sort of made a comeback is that there is a world after this one. This is the false one, and the true one is to come. And the true one is communism. A word I hadn't heard really much for 20 years, but came back. You know, like this is a thing that people are now kind of attached to, probably for good. Yeah, like I think that's probably a good thing.
I agree. And to me, Marx's philosophies are the most complex because he took Hegel and applied it to our reality like a science. Who else has come even remotely close to that ambition and originality?
Another way to think this is this thought experiment. Let's just say I've created a work of art that is completely and absolutely original, and it's right here now before us. you would not be able to even perceive it. It would only be perceivable to you as a work of art if it bore some relation to past art you were able to recognize. If it was in fact absolutely original, it would not be perceivable at all. So there's a way in which for something to be a new work, it needs also to be an old work, to have some element of recognizability.
As a calling, so amaze me, so it needs me every day. Well, I'll never be the same. They rest the sugar, they rest the holiday, they rest the parasol. Well, I lost some, yeah.
Hey. Something unnecessary. I don't know. We could cry.
Okay.
But tell me this.
I hope you guys can hear me right
Do
now.
people generally care
And I
about
want
what
to thank
others
all of you
think of
for
them?
joining. And if you guys have any questions about
Subject ourselves to others'
the guests or the actual animating or anything at all, you're welcome to. Oop, let me join in. And if you guys have any questions, oh, there. I think this will fix my audio. And yeah, so if you guys have any questions, please, type it in the chat. I can talk to you about 2D animation, what I'm up to now. And I could also, let me plug in some things in the chat, some resources that some of you guys might be interested in. So here's a couple of my favorite publishers. If you're looking to get some new books. And then, of course, here's the link for where you can watch other episodes and other really amazing videos by other artists. And let's see, we have a question here. It says, what is the inside joke of the carpets? Did you grow up with a shag carpet? Also, have you worked in textile art? So DJ Thanatos is probably one of the most talked about characters. And I think for me, one of the more enjoyable. So I don't know about you guys, but my grandma had really long shag carpet, and there, it was a house full of smokers. Like my grandma smoked, and many of my aunts and uncles, and I just remember rolling around on that carpet for the first part of my life, and then I started thinking about carpets as for the series, carpets as these big towels or something that you could sob into, right? So, sort of like a handkerchief or this big comforting thing that you could lay on and sort of like release or give into. I don't know if any of you guys know anything about primal scream therapy and those boxes. So I met in Vermont. When I was in Vermont for a few years, I actually met somebody who built these primal scream therapy boxes in the 70s. And they're sort of, like a larger coffin, insulated with probably carpeting and other foam. And you crawl in it and you scream for a while. At the top of your lungs. And the idea, I think, was you could scream your way back to the moment you were born, to like the beginning. So when I Google it, I get a lot of like John Lennon references. So he was into it. So it's an idea that was, I think, really big in the 70s. But yeah, it's primal scream therapy, which is where I think that idea sort of comes from. Evan says, "Can you tell us about the Brennan?" Oh, the poster. The poster I put in a couple of years back. That's an old room. That's such a good eye, Evan. Wow, that's amazing. So Bernadette Devlin. Maybe you're interested. So this, is a history on, the Bloody Sunday and Northern Ireland and that big moment again in the 70s. There are a lot of 70s references, I guess, going on. And some of the music seems to be nostalgic too, right? So I'm noticing when I'm putting the music together and finding bands, I have the best luck with bigger, more established bands that have been around a while, so that they can really tell their labels, and they have creative control over their catalog. And then many of the bands are just starting out. So they have a lot of creative control as well, but anything in the middle ground, in the middle range, a lot of people get involved. It's not just the band anymore or the label. There's publishing and clearing masters and so it's not just that I'm into putting nostalgic music in there, but it's just easier for me to afford. Is that Alex DeCorte in the limited store? That is Alex DeCorte. It's one of my favorites. I don't know if any of you guys went to the top of the Met recently and saw his blue big bird up there. But it is his neon house. There's a lot of, I have the list, but it's not available. A lot of like Where's Waldo moments in the limited store. And with each episode, I just keep adding instead of replacing. So, it's just going to get more and more cluttered. Abby Muslimova's painting is in there. Laura Owens, Math Bass, Daniel Keller, Heim Steinbach, B. Wirtz, Rob Pruitt. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's kind of fun to like just, stack and stack and stack. Yeah, let's see what else. So yeah, technically I'm using mostly a program called Harmony, where I can draw in vectors and zoom in and not lose any resolution. And then I dump that into After Effects and then into Premiere. So it's each scene is usually three different takes. So I'm shooting it like a film director. So I've got a wide, a medium, and a tight, and then I layer those in Premiere, and it just makes it more, I think, watchable, and it feels more interactive and less static. And yeah, it's weird how it's becoming more and more like traditionally narrative. In before this project, I wasn't really working that way. But yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, so this episode is 30 minutes and it took me about a year. Usually I can crank out 30 minutes in 6-7 months, but with COVID and with craziness, I don't know about you guys, but I had a really hard time being productive and being creative and like buckling down and finishing tasks. So I'm glad this one's finally done. How did this last year affect the making of it? So the last year, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced long COVID or if you've, experienced depression or more depression than usual, or this year's been, or the last 2 years has been crazy for everybody. But, speaking as an artist and somebody who had sort of a pretty regular practice up until COVID, my studio changed quite a bit, and then many of so a lot of the interviews in this, we talk about Trump, and so with each of the interviews in what you saw being about 3-4 minutes, they're usually like 40 minutes. They're really long. And I had to go back in multiple times and edit and remove and cut out references to Trump and all of this stuff that was really dated. And then my last interview with McKenzie Wark, we decided to just cut all of that out during the interview itself. Yeah, I mean, this episode I'm as I make them, right? So this is number 5. I think it's more technically advanced and difficult than the previous ones. It's tighter in the editing and the drawing. And I guess I'm embracing like this again, if this is a series on like capitalist critique, I'm really trying to embrace the entertainment value in storytelling, right? So this sort of Netflix aesthetic, and editing with certain sound supporting audio the way that you would with a TV show or a film. Let's see. How did you start making Très? Was there one conversation or theme that you were fixated on? The cast seems to challenge myth of progress and the failure of technology to deliver the good life over and over again. Yeah, the myth of progress and the failure of technology. I don't know. I guess, the show feels nostalgic, but it also feels, very like slacker in its approach. I think you could place the tone of it in the 90s, right? In this sort of like Richard Linklater, Beavis and Butthead, MTV's Liquid Television. And there are some, I think, really good contemporary animations that are doing that. Like, and then going further, like Rick and Morty, right? So Rick and Morty is about to premiere in 2 days, its new season. And it's, it's a critique, but also, I think Très is looking backward a lot because of the main character. The main character is like a Charlie Brown, is sort of this Harold in the Purple Crayon, this like lone philosopher or something. And I guess, philosophy at its core is a bit, Luddite, or a little bit like, it questions everything, and progress, or technology, or all of these things that we're playing with right now to express. When we incorporate some sort of philosophy, it seems to be this push and pull that's at heart. And so yeah, I think Tremal is sort of like, you know, looking back in many ways, but I like that, you know, I like that quality or the feeling. But you know, overall, it's also kind of, you know, it's a sad space, you know, and I have to be okay with that. Like I have to get amped up about that, you know. Let's see, what else? Anybody else have any questions? I could tell you that a really good book that I'm reading right now, I'll just put it in there as well. Where is it? I'll even give you the Amazon link because that would make more sense. It's another book by Semiotext. And you know, I think it sort of sums up what the series is, and it's a critique, but it's geared toward American capitalism, which is why it takes place, you know, in this mall. And I think going forward, I'd like to explore doing episodes outside of the country, and speaking to people in countries that have been affected by, and which country hasn't, but have been affected by American corporate interests, you know. That was affirmations on the security guard's phone. It's one of the best things on Instagram ever. Yes. Can you talk about your choice of mixing in real video? So the real video and animation, I don't know, I'm getting more and more into it in the color combinations and how busy, but also it like speeds up the process too. So, you know, I can go out and shoot, but you know, versus this where if I were to put this scene in a video, it wouldn't look as good because you could tell it's motion tracked. And so if I'm going to make a scene like this with supporting layers, I really want it to, you know, to have a lot going on when I go wide. But the videos more and more, again, in this episode, I use it more than the previous ones. Not only it just, you know, it speeds up the process and the production, but I like it. You know, I like motion tracking them to a handheld camera. Yeah. Why did you choose iPhone sounds as scene transitions? Was interesting to note my visceral response to receiving phantom notifications. I know exactly. Like with each break, I put a different sound in there, a different phone notification, and you know, some of them give me anxiety and some of them make me excited, and probably the same for you guys, where you have to like every, you know, 30 days change the sound of a notification because, you know, one like eventually gives you anxiety or something. And I don't know, I just thought that was a nice you know, scene break tool. Is that all the questions? I think so. Cool. Well, the links to DIS are in there, and if any of you guys have further questions, or you know, you want to talk more about anything in the animation, you know where to find me. And thank you so much.